Have you ever wanted to improve your microphone's quality from this to this? What's going on, everyone? It's Optics from the Nerd Herd, and today I'll show you how to do just that in OBS, all without spending a dime. Stay tuned. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel, It Means Oodles. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing. It lets me know that you enjoyed it. If you're unfamiliar with the Nerd Herd, we stream live on Twitch every Tuesday and Friday night. There's a link to our channel, our socials, and our Discord server down below, and we'd love to have you stop by and chat. So how do you improve the quality of your microphone from the hot mess that you heard earlier to what you're hearing now? Easy, through audio filters in OBS. A lot of content creators might think that microphones are plug and play, and they kind of are to an extent, but a lot of them still need some extra help. In the world of content creation, your work needs to be as pleasing to the ears as it is to the eyes, and no amount of eye candy is going to keep people around if your audio is offensive to their ear holes. Alright, before we get started, please keep in mind that your mileage will vary when it comes to setting up your microphone in OBS, because every microphone is different and every environment is different. What works for me may not work for you, however, it should be enough to get you started with some trial and error. If you've been to our workshop streams before, you've heard me go on and on about audio because it's something that I struggled with for almost a year when I first started taking streaming seriously. My gear wasn't that great, and really it still isn't, but I really wanted to improve my audio because at the time it seemed like the weakest link in the whole setup. I wasn't prepared to drop hundreds of dollars on a new microphone and an external mixer, so I started doing some research. I want to show you that you don't need the best gear to get a quality sound, as long as you go into it with an open mind, that you're ready to learn and aren't afraid to, roll up your sleeves and do some work. So what you're hearing right now is my voice through the affordable, newer NW3U USB condenser microphone connected directly to my computer. However, if you are using an external mixer and, say, an XLR microphone, all of this can still apply. The specs on this microphone are pretty much what you would expect with a budget USB microphone. However, it did receive good reviews from sources that I trust, and with a boom arm, a shock mount, and a pop filter, it came to about $70 Canadian roughly 2 years ago. And that's really hard to beat, but it still needed some help because the audio just wasn't good enough out of the box. OBS has some pretty powerful filters baked in, and I suspect that 3 of them are probably used by most content creators. They're the gain filter, the noise gate, and the noise suppression filter. The gain filter takes your audio signal and amplifies it, which can be really useful if your microphone's output is a little on the weak side. The downside to all of this is that it will amplify everything that your microphone picks up, including any unwanted background noise. A way to get around this is to use a noise gate, which acts just like a gate. It opens and lets the sound pass through when it reaches a threshold, and then it will close again when the audio level goes below that threshold. Now, the downside to a noise gate is that it can be really hard to make it sound natural by having an open and close speed that is neither too fast nor too slow. The noise suppression filter, on the other hand, will remove unwanted frequencies all the time, and it's often used in conjunction with a noise gate. The noise gate will block any unwanted sound when your signal is low, for example when you're not speaking, and then the noise suppressor takes over when your audio levels rise. The downside of this filter is it can cause your audio quality to degrade if you're too aggressive with your settings. Now, these filters work well enough, and I used them myself when I first started out. However, I found that I wanted more control over my audio as my gear started to change, so I did some digging, and I settled on VST plugins, or Virtual Studio Technology plugins. These itty-bitty files act the same way as OBS filters do, however they tend to allow for more flexibility. Plus, there are tons of VST plugins out there, so you're bound to find some that work for you. My plugins of choice are the RIA plugs, or Reaper plugins. Reaper is a digital audio workstation application that I use for recording music. However, you can download the plugins separately for free from the link in the description. I've also included a link to an article that shows where to place the plugins after you've unzipped them so that OBS can see them. The RIA plugs that I use are the equalizer and the compressor, and then I couple them all with the expander filter that comes with OBS. Let me show you what the interface looks like for each, and I'll give you a quick run through of what the terms and numbers mean. With the equalizer, you can change how loud or how quiet certain frequencies are in your audio, or you can cut them out altogether. For my environment and setup, I created a 4-band EQ, which allows me to either boost or cut the frequencies at those 4 points. So as you can see from my settings, there's nothing getting through from 50 Hz down, and the reason for that is because that's where the background noise tends to exist in my environment. Now, I have a bit of a boost at 200 Hz, I have a little bit of a cut at 1000 Hz or 1 kHz, because that's usually where my voice exists, as you can see from that yellow squiggly input. Now you can see that there's also a full cut at 10,000 megahertz or 10 kilohertz, and that's done to try to remove some of the sound that gets made when you make an S sound or a soft C sound. Now this is called sibilance, and too much of it can tend to be abrasive to your ears, so I try to remove as much of it as I can without making the audio sound muffled. Now over on the far right, there's a gain boost or gain cut. However, I don't use that at all, but it's there if you need it. In my opinion, an equalizer is a must-have filter for any content creator, and at this stage in the game, I'm really surprised that there isn't even just a basic one with some presets included with OBS. Next up is the compressor, and its job is to keep your audio as close to a specified level as possible. But thanks to the terminology that is used with compressors, it can tend to scare off a lot of people. However, it's really not that bad once you understand the core concept. So the main parameters to look at when you're setting up a compressor are your threshold, or what level your audio needs to reach before the compressor starts to do its job, your attack, or how quickly the compressor kicks in, your release, or how quickly the compressor stops doing its job, and then your ratio, which is how much you want your audio signal compressed down to your threshold. So when it comes to compression, a 1-to-1 compression ratio is no compression. What you hear is what you're going to get. Between 2 and 3-to-1 is considered low compression, 5-to-1 is medium compression, and then between 8 and 10-to-1 is considered high compression. So to explain it more clearly, let's forget about what you see on the screen from my settings, and as an example, we'll say that you have a threshold set at an even 0 dB, or 0 decibels. If your ratio is set at 4-to-1, and your audio signal goes 1, 2, 3, 4 decibels above your 0 threshold, your compressor is going to kick in and it's going to squash it down to 1, basically 4-to-1. So if it goes up to 8, it squashes it to 2. If it goes up to 12, it squashes it to 3. So if you rage a lot, or if you play scary games and you scream when you get spooked, your compressor is going to kick in and it's going to level out those high points in your audio signal, but it's also going to have the added benefit of eliminating clipping, which is that nasty crackling sound which happens when your microphone receives audio that's too great for it to handle. Your viewers may not know the work that you put in behind the scenes to save their ears, but if they did, I'm sure that they would appreciate it. Now, the last filter that I use in OBS is the expander filter, and it's the one that comes with OBS, so it's not a VST plugin. However, I still want to cover it because it's so good. Its job is to remove ambient noise from your audio signal. In my setup, the expander filter was a game changer because it removes background audio in a much more natural way than the noise suppression filter, and it does it so consistently that the noise gate filter isn't needed either. The ratio, threshold, attack, and release, they all work the same as they do on a compressor. There's also a gain boost or cut on the expander, so really it's like getting 3 filters in one. You're getting your noise gate, your noise suppression, and your gain boost. The settings that I use are the default settings for this filter, but again, your mileage will vary. So, are you confused by all this? Hopefully not, because if this wasn't enough, each filter can drastically change your sound depending on where it is in your signal chain. OBS treats the top filter as the first in your signal chain. It modifies the audio and it sends it to the next one, that modifies the audio, sends it to the next one, and so on and so on. These 3 filters work best for me in this order. However, I read an article from somebody who said that they had better results when they placed the expander filter at the top of the signal chain rather than at the bottom like I do, which is also how OBS recommends. So as you can see, none of this is set in stone and everybody has their own preference, so it can take a little bit of tinkering to find what works for you. This video only scratches the surface because a deep dive into each of the filters, what they do, how to configure them, it could go on for hours and hours. There are so many VST plugins out there that you could apply to your audio whether you're live streaming or recording video on demand content like this. The purpose of this video is again to show you that digging into your audio really isn't as scary as it may seem, and also to get you thinking by providing options, free options that you can use to improve your content, which is what we should all be striving for. Honestly, the best way to figure this all out is to dive in while referencing the wealth of knowledge that we have online. Everyone's ears are tuned differently, so audio can be quite subjective. My advice is to set up your filters, record a video, listen to the audio, make any changes,
record another video, listen to the audio, make more changes, record another video, listen to the audio, make more changes, record another video, listen to the audio, make more changes.
So if after all this you're happy with your audio, have somebody else listen to it, And if it sounds good to them, and they're honest with their feedback, there's a good chance that it will sound good to most viewers as well. So what filters do you use?
Hang on. I'm not ready to wrap this up just yet because I've switched over to the microphone on the SteelSeries Arctis 1 wireless headset to show you that if you're using a headset mic, you can still benefit from the audio filters in OBS. What you're hearing right now is the clean signal without any filters applied, and it sounds very thin and nasally without a lot of definition in the low end. But if I apply the same filters that I use with the USB microphone with a couple little tweaks, this is what we get. Even though it's far from being perfect, it sounds infinitely better to my ears at least, because we've taken out a lot of the background hiss or the background noise that was being picked up, and we've brought the high end down and the low end up to give it a much fuller sound. And this just shows that you can do a lot without spending a lot. Now, let's let that other guy finish up.
So what filters do you use? Do you use the ones that come with OBS? Do you use third-party VST plugins, or do you use something completely different? Go ahead and leave your comments down below, and if you need help with a specific filter or plugin, why not stop by our Twitch stream for some live advice? Again, if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up. If you thought it sucked, give it a thumbs down. I'm not here to play the YouTube numbers game. I use this as a way to gauge what kind of videos you might like to see. Thanks again for stopping by the channel. Take it easy. Test. Yeah, okay. If you're unfamiliar with the Nerd Herd, we stream live on Twitch Tuesdays and Friday nights. Now, a lot of streamers might think that they can just take their microphone and plug it in, fire up their... In the world of content creation, your work needs to be as pleasing to the eye. What works for me may not work for you, however... The specs on this microphone are pretty much what you would expect with a budget microphone. However, it did receive good reviews from... A way to get around this is by using a noise gate, and the noise gate acts as a gate. It opens. Now, the noise suppression filter, on the other hand, strips out unwanted frequencies all the time, the entire time that your audio is picking. The noise suppression filter, on the other hand, it removes... The noise suppression filter, on the other hand, will remove unwanted audio. The noise suppression filter, on the other hand, will remove unwanted frequencies. Now, these filters work well enough, and I used them myself when I first started out. However, I found that I wanted more flexibility. Now, these filters work well enough, and I used them myself when I first started out. However, I found that I wanted more control as my gear started... Stop punching your mic. So, the noise gate will block out all audio when the frequency... I struggled with it for a very, very long time when I first started streaming. My gear wasn't that great, and really, it still isn't. However, I really want... If you've... Wait, what? Okay. So, what you're hearing right now is my voice. What you're hearing right now... The downside to this filter is that it can cause your audio quality to meh. The main parameters to look at when you're dealing with a compressor are your threshold, and then between 8 and 10 to 1, that's high, and then your ratio, which is how much hitting microphones. The last filter that I want to cover is one that comes with OBS, so it's not the last filter that I want to cover is... The last cover... You're getting your noise gate, your suppressor, and your gain boost. For me, the expander filter was such a game changer because it removes unwanted background noise much more in a much... I'm not here to play the YouTube numbers game. I use this as a way to gauge what kind of videos you might like to see. Farg!